Hey everybody, thanks for watching the Arkansas Gun Guy. Well, I've done it. I finally got my hands on a unicorn, or at least a gun that's been very elusive to me. That is the H&K P7, the legendary H&K P7. So just got my hands on this. I want to take a moment to share with you guys. I'll talk about the box actually for a second and then walk around the firearm. There's a ton of great videos on the interwebs about the P7. I'll try to list some of those in the comments. But for me, as a H&K fanboy, I am just beyond thrilled to get my hands on one of these and share it with you guys. Thanks for stopping by. If you haven't yet, please consider liking and subscribing. I try to get new content out every week, very positive content about firearms, and trying to grow my channel. And if you have experience with the P7, good, bad, I hope all good, right? Please feel free to sound off in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. But so this is police surplus, the H&K P7 PSP version. There's three different versions of 9mm I'll talk about in a second. But this is the gun that, again, police surplus. It doesn't look like it's been fired very much, and we'll talk about that as well. But a couple comments about the box before I open it up. I'm used to the normal H&K box. They're a little bigger than this, kind of a softer plastic, and they're the same box for everything. So I was fascinated how small this box was. But then when I picked it up, I was fascinated by how heavy it was. This is a very chunky type gun, I'm assuming, because it weighs a lot. So that's really just a couple comments about the box. It's tiny, but it's heavy. So open the firearm up, got the owner's manual. You also get two single stack 8-round mags, as well as the brush that came with it. I do not have the gas tube scraper. I will hopefully pick one of those up eventually for more money that I should spend for it. And then you get the firearm. So that's why we're here. I'll set the box aside. We'll come back to the magazine in a second, or the owner's manual. But here is a quick view of this gun that I have been looking for so long. Again, this is the PSP version, the P7 PSP. The PSP, there's three versions of 9mm. There is the PSP, which is the original one. And then some folks didn't like the heel mag release here, which I'll pop out. So they moved the mag release up here to the back of the trigger guard and called it the M8. 8 referring to the number of rounds it holds. The P7 and M8 both hold 8 rounds. Then they decided they needed more capacity, so they widened the grip a little bit, kept all the things up here the same, and added a 13-round capacity, and they dubbed that one the M13. I think that's probably the hardest one to find of all the P7s. So again, this is a police trade-in. You can see by the markings here on the slide, NDS. That is an acronym for a very long German word that I will never be able to pronounce. But it's basically the police force of Lower Saxony. Again, from the looks of this firearm, it doesn't look like it was fired very often. You'll see a little bit of wear on there. But other just markings while we're on it. The police versions had different proof marks. You don't see the antler horns that you would see on most H&Ks, and they don't have the 2-digit date code. They all seem to have the month and year the firearm was produced. So this gun was produced in the mid-80s. And the firearm itself was produced, I guess I should back up for a second. It started, desire for the German police force to have a more powerful gun started after the Munich massacre. And they sanctioned several different companies to provide firearms of a certain size that were ambidextrous, that held at least 8 rounds. And through those trials, three companies were chosen. Walther had an updated version of one of their firearms. That gun was called the P5. Sig Sauer made a version of their 225, and that was dubbed the P6. And H&K did something totally new. There was nothing like this before or after, and that gun was called the P7. All those are excellent firearms, but this one, I think, by far is the most interesting because of how it was designed and all the engineering that went behind it. And it has a fantastic reputation for being incredibly reliable and incredibly accurate. So all guns had to be, there was no safety on the firearms, I forgot to mention that, and they had to be safe to carry with one in the chamber. So, and this gun does that in a fantastic way. The most interesting feature of this firearm is two things. The squeeze cocking design here we'll talk about, as well as the gas delay system, which we'll take a closer look at. But the fact that it has a gas delay system, a really good trigger, and a fixed barrel make this gun apparently very accurate. So if you just walk around the gun, there's a close-up look at the front, of course. On the side, we talked about all the different markings on this side. Serial numbers there. You do have rear cocking serrations, but not front. Up top, I've read that this is the first firearm to offer 3-dot sights, or 3 white dots. I can't verify if that's true or not, but I read it on the internet, or I heard it on the internet, so it must be true, right? Again, you have rear cocking serrations there, and then all the H&K nomenclature on this side. And by this time, when this was imported, they were in Columbus, Georgia. You'll see versions in Bessemer, Alabama, and Chantilly, Virginia as well, depending on where H&K was when these were imported. Again, no optics, of course, at that time, as well as no pick rail. Very sleek design up here. But you do have interesting texture on the front of the trigger guard up here. If you're a person who likes to wrap your finger around the front of the trigger guard, I've never done that. Although there's not a great place to put your hands here. This is a really low, this thing sits really low in your hands, almost like a Glock. So super low war axis. I'm assuming that fixed barrel and that gas delay system allow for that. But this thing, again, makes it very easy to point. I should have also mentioned the grip angle. They talk about the grip angle being the most desirable. I think if you hold your hand like this to shoot, this one fits just like that in your hand. So it's very naturally a good pointer. But again, we'll talk about the striker indicator in just a second. You got these polymer grips. Again, the nomenclature is usually on here. The PSPs are all just marked P7. The M8s add an M8 naming there, and as well as the M13s. And some stippling there on the back. So the other thing this gun was designed is very sleek. There's no buttons on the back, on the outside, right? You've got a takedown lever here, but there's no other buttons like the decocker we'll talk about, or a slide catch. And there is one on here, but it is hidden, and a lot of people miss it. And it's this little button right there. That is actually your slide stop. So it holds open on empty mag, of course, but if you want to open it without a mag in here, you simply rack the slide back, push that button in, and voila, slide is held open. And again, you can see the fixed barrel design there. I'm pretty sure I should have brought a flashlight with me. I'll never get a shot of that gas tube down in there, but we'll come back to that in a second. So now that I have this open, let's talk about this cocking lever, because it also functions as a slide release. You fire 8 rounds, drop your mag, put a new mag in. All you gotta do is re-engage the cocking mechanism and the mag drops. I don't wanna drop this on an empty chamber, so I'll hold it, but if you squeeze cock this, it releases the slide. So very cool feature. That's step 1 of this cocking mechanism. The other thing it does, the most important thing it does, is it cocks the striker. So when you pick the firearm up, you grip it naturally, and you can see that the striker then pops out the back. Turn this way towards the light. So again, once you grip it, striker pops out the back. And all you have to do then is release the striker. Small bit of take up here and a fantastic break. Again, H&K triggers for me have always been kind of hit and miss, but this one, it feels like a fantastic trigger. So again, squeeze it, it's cocked, and you release. Most striker fire guns today, when you have to pull the trigger, it finishes cocking the striker before releasing it. So this one makes it really easy to release. Now technically there's 3 ways to fire this firearm. Pull the trigger does nothing, so again, incredibly safe. You have to squeeze it and then pull the trigger like I just demonstrated. But you can also pull the trigger and then squeeze it. This feels super awkward, but it will, you'll see, activate the striker and fire the firearm. So again, pull the trigger, squeeze cock it, and there it went. Again, try again. It doesn't feel natural at all. Pull the trigger, squeeze cock it, and it fires. And if you pull them both simultaneously, you'll see that it fires as well. So very cool feature. It takes, I've read, between 12 and 15 pounds of force to activate this, so you're not gonna do it by accident. But again, very light trigger pull, in my humble opinion. And it takes less than 2 pounds to maintain your grip here, to maintain pressure. Again, I do it with one finger, and it's not awkward at all. Once you pick the firearm up, it's easy to maintain grip on. Also, I should mention the grips. This is an improvement from the P9, which is right-handers only. You do have a couple of small contours here, but they fit beautifully in your hand, feels fantastic. So the P9 is not for left-handers like me. Then this gun was designed to be ambidextrous, and I think that they did a good job with that. So let's take a quick look inside. To take this gun apart, all you gotta do is push the button down, pull back, up and over. Well, I say that, there it comes. And you have the firearm with the fixed barrel, recoil spring, and the slide. And we'll talk about the slide. Actually, we'll talk about the grip first, because again, you can see the fixed barrel on here, and there's your proof mark. little movement, no tilting. So again, lending to accuracy. You can see here, pulling the trigger does nothing. However, when you do the squeeze, when you squeeze cock this, you'll see the striker pull back like that. Do it again so you can see that. And then pulling the trigger, drops it. So releases the striker. So there's your design of how that works. And again, the gas delay system I talked about starts with this little piston here. This piston matches up to a gas tube that is directly below the barrel here. I can't get it on camera, sorry about that. It is down in there. And what happens when a round is fired, there's a hole in the bottom of the barrel. There's also one on the top. But the gas from the firing that drives the bullet out sends gas pressure down to the tube. That tube, this piston rests inside that tube. So when the firearm is trying to go into recoil, the gas pressure holds this the slide and battery until the bullet has left the chamber, left the barrel, and gas pressures equalize, and then recoil happens. So a very cool feature that again adds to accuracy of this firearm, or so I have read. Again, we'd love to hear from you guys. Do you guys find this gun to be super accurate? Everything I've read says it's a very accurate firearm. So very interesting design. Polygonal rifling as well. I will never get the flutes on here. I need to bring a flashlight with me, but it looks like it has a fluted chamber as well to ease with extraction. Kind of an H&K signature for the time. So that is my quick walk around and information that I have about the H&K P7. Again, we'd love to hear from you guys. I can't do this with the wrong hand. There you go. You line that tube up under there. I gotta switch hands. And very easy to put back together. So we'd love to hear from you guys. What's your experience with this awesome firearm? As always, thank you so much for watching the Arkansas Gun Guy.